Welcome to this edition of the Simsbury Woman. I'm Barbara O'Connor. Joining me today is First Selectman Lisa Hefner, but before we get to our little conversation today, I'd like to introduce myself to you. As regular viewers know, this show was produced by Shannon Nall, a former member of the Board of Selectmen, an extremely active mom and tireless child advocate who wanted to highlight the contributions of so many of our fellow Simsbury women. Shannon and her family have moved on to a new location and the next chapter in their life's adventure. And because of changes in my own life, I've been asked to try to take over this show for her. I'm sure everybody wishes Shannon all the best, and maybe she'll get to see this and see how we're doing. But we hope to continue her legacy of having significant conversations with so many of the women in town. The theme of change is something that Lisa and I will talk about a little bit later, but it's really what brought me here to this point. My family moved to Simsbury about 8 years ago. We've led a rather nomadic life in our 30 years as a family, as my husband was with a major hospitality corporation, so we've lived in quite a few places. Our children learned to grow where they were planted. Prior to our third child being born, I had a career in advertising and marketing, but when number 3 came along, I was fortunate enough to be able to become a stay-at-home mom. So I joined the ranks of the professional volunteers that do so much in every school system around the country. When we moved to Simsbury, only our youngest child was going to be attending school, and he would have 3 years in the high school, and for some reason was rather adamant about not having his mom at the school every day. So I looked for other opportunities and became friends with somebody who was a member of the tourism committee, and that led me to getting involved that way and to here. My one tip as an aside for this, for anybody who goes through relocations, is the only way to become happy where you are is to get involved in the community where you are, put down some roots, which means get involved, volunteer, be a part of things, don't just stay home. One thing that did keep us, though, staying home was this winter that we've had, and I'd like to, through our decorations, think that we're getting into spring. Lisa, could you tell us how the town of Simsbury made it through this seemingly endless winter?
Well, it's not over yet,
yeah.
But we did well. We have, as you know, a public works department that plows all our roads. We have 164 roads in town, and we have 12 major plow routes. Each is run by the same driver every run through. So
okay.
The driver gets to know the route, gets to know the trouble issues, gets to, if there's a complaint, can speak directly to the resident. And it's the same driver who will be cognizant of the issue on the next run. So we try and keep consistency there in our drivers.
One thing that I was thinking about as I looked at this winter is the last few winters in New England has expanded my vocabulary. A few years ago, I learned the term roof rake, which I never thought I would ever have occasion to use, and this year the operative term was ice dams. Now, just about everybody I know has had some sort of ice dam damage to their homes. Did the town buildings suffer any sort of damage?
Some. The library did have some ice dams, and so that led to our public works crew going up on the roof and shoveling. You'll see in our capital budget for next year some improvements that will improve the roof in that area to prevent the ice dams in the future. So that, yes, there's absolutely some. Just like homes were affected, some of our buildings were as well.
I've noticed as you drive from town to town, you can clearly see town lines very often, and Simsbury does a fantastic job of clearing the roads. When I talked to my son as he was commuting into Hartford, and he would leave Simsbury, I'd say, well, how were the roads? He said, Simsbury was great, Bloomfield not so much, Hartford not so much, but Simsbury always did a terrific job. One complaint I have heard from some people is their mailboxes getting knocked over. How does the town deal with the mailbox issue and the plow?
Well, I'll get to that, but I do want to thank you for mentioning our great public works crew. They put in numerous hours. Sometimes they work 20 hours at a time with 4 hours of sleep. They pay attention not only to road clearing, but safety of our residents.
Yes.
So that's their number one priority.
Job.
And so it takes about 4 hours to do one run throughout the town. And during the course of that time, sometimes you'll be out there shoveling and you'll see a truck come by and you think it's going fast because they're loud and they're big. But if you we have a snow plow ride-along program where residents can actually get in with the snow driver and see the operations and understand what they're doing. And if you actually ride with them, you'll see that they're not going fast at all. But the impression from the outside is that they are because they're big and loud. But as you know, with the amount of snow we've had, sometimes mailboxes do get hit. The town will reimburse them $25 for the pole and $25 for the box itself if it's hit by the plow. We don't reimburse if it's just snow that hits it and it falls off on its own due to rot or something like that. And we do encourage, if your snow plow was hit, go on our public works site and you can fill out an application to get that reimbursement. But if you do put up a new mailbox, try and make sure you do it more than 9 inches away from the road so that we don't have that. But it's one of the challenges. That's New England.
Right, yeah, not much we can do about the snow with that. Well, hopefully we are seeing the end of winter soon here with that. What kind of things can we look forward to in the spring with Simsbury? What's new? I know I was at the public hearing for the first of the public hearings about the Hudson property next to the beautiful Bridge of Flowers. What kind of exciting things can we look forward to in the spring that maybe people aren't aware of?
Well, there's lots of exciting things happening. Like you mentioned, the Betty Hudson property. That is the property located next to the Flower Bridge. It was owned by a former resident who's since moved out of town. But we have one of the things we've discovered from doing lots of marketing studies about the town is that one of the key assets the town has is the Farmington River. And surprisingly, there aren't that many points of access in town. You think there are, but there really aren't. And there aren't a lot of places to put in kayaks or boats. What the Betty Hudson property does is behind it, and it's sort of hard to see because the house is there right now, but there's a brook that comes into the Farmington River, and it's very accessible to the river. So this is the potential to do another point of entry into the river for kayaks, and it may not even need a dock. It's so, the way it's landscaped, you may actually just be able to walk down and put a kayak in. So it has tremendous potential there. As you know, the Flower Bridge is one of our main tourist attractions. And so it's an opportunity to enhance that part of the town. And we did hold a meeting last week on the Betty Hudson property. We were seeking input from the community. What is your vision?
Yes.
What do you want to see?
Yeah.
What feel are you looking for? And we had great input from the community. We had about 40 people show up. It's sort of funny. You hold a hearing, and we held the hearing, and I said, all right, who would like to speak? And there was silence.
Yes.
And I looked into the audience, and the funny thing about it is I knew everyone in that audience, and they all have strong opinions. But sometimes when you're in a meeting and it's a formal setting, you hesitate to share your point of view because you think it's something different than just talking about what you think. And
I know, and observe, I didn't speak at that particular hearing either, but I was interested, or very happy rather, to see how many people who work on the Flower Bridge were there to give their opinions. I think that volunteer group is just amazing with what they do with the bridge, and I think it's good that the town is listening to what those folks who have so much invested in that part of town and have just given so much to the community, that we hear what's important to them as that. And, it was something, to see the use of the area expand and more people being able to enjoy what's down there, not just on the bridge, but closer to the river, picnic possibilities. I read somewhere where the bridge contributes to the number of weddings we have in town.
There are lots of weddings
people like to
down
have their pictures done
there
there and have the weddings in the area then because of that. Is the town concerned about future costs to the upkeep in that area?
Well, of course. I mean, anytime you do an improvement on town property, you always contemplate the cost, but you also contemplate the value. What value are we adding to the community in the recommendations we make? And we feel that, and I think the community agrees because they have been supportive of the Betty Hudson project, to me, is that this is a real opportunity to enhance our town and make it even more beautiful, and to enhance this destination that is already so valuable to our community. So, you know, if you look at the building, if there's a building that stays, there are more costs associated. If it's a park, there are less costs associated with it. I have asked Mr. Tom Roy, who's the Director of Public Works, to get us an estimate on operating costs were a building to be maintained there versus a park. And so we'll get estimates from Mr. Jerry Toner if it's just a park.
Right.
So those will be part of the considerations. And there are things you can do to mitigate costs and enhance beauty, like using natural plantings.
Right.
That, you know, and using things that don't need to be planted every year, but that can grow and thrive in areas like that. So there are lots of, we'll make sensible choices, but we don't want to sacrifice value. It needs to be spectacular, and it will be, because this community cares about that area.
I'm sure it will. That's such a nice anchor to one end of the center of town.
That's right.
Then going up, when you've got the Performing Arts Center, and I know the schedule has come out for this summer, and it looks terrific, both with what the Hartford Symphony is doing and the Talcott Mountain Music Festival, and the additional concerts that the Performing Arts Center is having there. Is there anything going on in the center of town? Any new developments coming in? Any new businesses that you can share?
Well, one thing I will share with you is there is something happening at the Performing Arts Center site. We have recently and unanimously in the Board of Selectmen selected that site as the main site for the new senior center. And it will be a senior center community center. And the way we look at it is the days of islands are over. Schools aren't just for the schools. You want to make sure you invite the seniors. The senior center isn't just for the seniors, although that is the primary purpose of doing it there. But there are opportunities when the seniors aren't using it at night, the community could use it, and the Performing Arts Center could, they do performances 16 to 20 a year, so it's not that much. We're looking at compatible uses, so it could be multi-generational, multi-use, because it is in such a key environmental area. We'll be very conscious about how it integrates with the environment that surrounds it. We want to bring the outside in. So would this be
a whole new building, or what?
It would be attached to the Performing Arts Center.
Oh, okay.
So the Performing Arts Center has programming needs, like they need a green room and some bathrooms. The Senior Center has obviously programming needs. They need a multi-purpose room and a good kitchen to which they can do community lunches and offer classes. So there's an opportunity for a tremendous synergy there and to make it just beautiful. We're looking for architecture that will complement the architecture that's down there and that will relate and integrate with the nature around it. So
there'll be accessibility for people and additional parking, because I know a major issue that the senior center is facing now here in Eno Hall is the accessibility and the parking issues.
You can't have a senior center that isn't accessible. So that's part of the programming evaluation we'll be doing. How do we create a building that is accessible and easy for our seniors to get to, and that meets their programming needs, and that's compatible with the needs of the Performing Arts Center and the community in general.
That would be so exciting to see that coming. Something like that, how many years does it take for that to come? I mean, I know the senior center has been debated and discussed for quite a while.
Well, that's why the Board of Selectmen was very excited to come to a unanimous decision on this. I think that is a real tribute to the amount of comments we got from the public, to the work of our staff who really helped us evaluate the obstacles and opportunities for each site. It will take a while. This particular site has some challenges. We have to evaluate the wetlands and the habitat around it, so that is a formal evaluation. We'll begin with the wetlands flagging, whereas you flag the wetlands and consult with DEEP and make sure you understand the challenges environmentally. We'll also, and then whatever habitats might be affected, we want to do this in the most respectful manner to the environment that surrounds it. Obviously, it's a very important part. And then after that, there's the potential for some zoning changes, because right now I guess there's a 20-foot height level, which doesn't allow 2 levels. So I don't know if there will be a recommendation for 2 levels, but if there is, that will involve a zoning change. So there are a number of boards and commissions that will be looking at it, as well they should, because this is not just a staff-driven thing. This is our And that's the one thing about local government that's really exciting. It's just us.
Yes.
And it's what we want, and We are represented by the various boards and commissions who will have an opportunity to give input, obviously aging and disability, to make sure we're in compliance and that we're meeting the needs of our seniors.
Now, further up Hot Meadow, there in the north end of town, driving past there today, I saw the apartments that are up there really
Dorset Crossing.
Going along very well. And I guess there'll be a groundbreaking soon for
I haven't gotten
or anything. We don't know. Or
everything that the town can approve has been approved. So it's waiting on Big Y to begin the process of starting, and we're looking forward to that and welcoming them. The Dorset Crossing, one of the aspects of that site is that they are doing specialty housing for people with multiple sclerosis, and there are about 40 or maybe a little more than 40 of those housing. So that's exciting. There are very many of those opportunities on the East Coast, and this is one of, I think, maybe 2. So we're excited to welcome them and have them integrate into the community and welcome them.
Now, this development, these plans, all of those lead to how do we pay for everything and what's happening with the budget for next year?
Oh, that's a great question. Obviously a builder of the apartments, they pay for it. It's a developer who pays for it. And through that development, the town does get revenue. That helps grow our grand list, and the grand list is the amount of money we bring in based on property taxes out there. So that some of the development, you'll see there will grow the grand list. But at the same time as we're growing the grand list, because of the development, we're also adding services that need to be met. And one of the things you'll see in this year's budget is we're adding 2 police officers because of the development we're seeing around. We do need to make sure that our public safety force keeps up with the increased development. So those are 2 challenges to the budget. We did have a lot of opportunity savings with our other post-employment benefits and some of our internal service funds, a little complicated stuff. But the net result is I think we're going to come in under 1% increase, and there is a strong likelihood that we'll have a flat or just a little below tax increase.
Is that the same case for the school department's budget?
The school department, I don't have the final numbers on them, but they presented a very, very responsible budget. I was very pleased with the budget they presented. And the 3 boards, the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance have all been working towards the goal to coming in with the most responsible budget for our taxpayers that still maintains the quality services that we still have to plow the roads. We still have to provide public safety.
Speaking of these other boards and things like the roads and stuff, now the budgets are totally separate. Things like you don't get any input on when schools close because of the snow or anything.
I don't. They don't call me up and ask. I find out like everyone else. I turn on the television or get the emergency alerts. But they do obviously consult with our police department to see how the roads are. Our public works. They will get information, of course, and we're happy to provide information. They make very thoughtful decisions.
Okay. You sound like you've got everything just very calmly under control here. You've been through a lot the last couple months, a lot of changes in your life that maybe you didn't expect, or if you did plan for them, maybe the timing was a little different. And I think we all, a year ago, I would not have anticipated sitting in a chair like this, having this kind of discussion with you, because it wasn't in my long-term plan. So often we find that the hardest lesson to learn is that the world doesn't necessarily turn on our schedule, and we find ourselves in new situations. How are you doing personally in everything you're doing? Personally,
I'm doing great because I have been so fortunate. It was a strange circumstance that I ended up in this. There's no question about that. But the great thing is the community has recognized that, and I have been overwhelmed by the amount of people who have come up to me and said, "Lise, I'll help you. Lise, you ended up in this situation. We know this landed in your lap. I'll help you." And just knowing, I think sometimes we forget the government isn't run by someone else. It's just us.
Yeah.
It's just our neighbors, the people you see in Fitzgerald's. And they have been so willing to step up. And to tell you the truth, the Board of Selectmen has been very supportive of me in this new role. They recognize that it was unexpected, and this was not the normal course of business. But that said, the community has been wonderful. And obviously I'm very appreciative of how supportive they were of Mary. That has meant a lot to her, and it means a lot to me. So
one thing I've noticed over the years as I've seen you on the, I did not know you before you became part of the Board of Selectmen, was you seem to lead through consensus building.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this is what I think we should do and let's do it. You seem to be able to get a lot of opinions, and I've noticed when people give you their opinion, you don't just say, okay, thanks, yes. You do seem to take them seriously. And
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that seems to be continuing, as I think that was a real strength of yours.
Thank you. I mean, I will say, we all see the world from where we sit, but we make better decisions when we hear from people who sit elsewhere and help us broaden our perspective and help us. I love it when someone gives me an opinion about something that I have never thought about. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That broadens my understanding of the issue and helps me get to a better resolution when people do that, which is why it's so important that people reach out to me and all members of the Board of Selectmen.
What are some of the ways that people can communicate with you, and also that you let people know what's going on? I have found that it seems that to get the word out to people, there are so many avenues, but yet you seem to not be able to get to everybody. Some people only want things electronically. Some people want things in print. People want phone calls, but then they don't want phone calls. It gets to the point where, okay, we've got an election coming up. Some people almost want you to be pulled, go to their door, tell them, come on, we're going to go vote now.
Well, I actually have knocked on 5,000 doors. So that is one of the ways you get information. Because when you're at a meeting, some people will come to speak, but often very few people come to speak. So you really don't get a sense of what our community is what issues are important, what they're thinking about, unless you go out and ask. So I actually do that. A lot of elected officials do that. And that's one very important way. I'm having an open house next Monday from 4 to 6, and anyone's welcome to come in, and I'll have cookies. So.
Now, this show may not run till the month of April, so it may be past, but is that something you're going to do on a regular basis, have open houses?
And I announce them at the Board of Selectmen meetings every Tuesday. Following a Board of Selectmen meeting, I put out a first Selectmen statement that goes out on news and announcements. If people want to find out about what's happening in the town, one of the most important things you can do is sign up for news and announcements on our website, and you will get our press releases and get the information about what's happening in town.
And the town is also on Twitter.
Yeah.
And there is a newsletter.
We do the Simsbury Scoop. That's done by Stephanie Reef, and that tries to highlight some of the different events or programs or services the town offers.
And the town website is full of information, and I understand it's being revised somewhat, but it's still a great source for everything that's going on in town.
It really is. And, you were asking me about snow. If you go onto the Public Works webpage, and hopefully SCTV will put that up there, you can click on snow policy for the town, and you'll hear everything about clearing fire hydrants, how you report a damaged mailbox, how the plows pick which routes. You can actually see the routes that your plows take. You can see their strategy. They plow the center road first, and then after the snow stops, then they widen the street. And you begin to understand why. And so there's a lot of information there.
Great. Now, the next big event in town that everybody should be aware of will be the is there going to be a town meeting before the budget, or just the election?
No, well, there are a couple of sites. I didn't bring my dates with me, but they are on the town website. You can go on the budget link and look at all the important dates coming up. But yes, there will be. The next big moment for me is I'm presenting the Board of Selectmen's budget to the Board of Finance, and that's on March 31st. So that will be the opportunity for the Board of Finance, an independent board, to review the budget that the Board of Selectmen has recommended. The way it works is staff recommends changes to the budget. I review them, make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. So that's the first Selectmen's budget. The Board of Selectmen then make changes and revisions. And then we as a board adopt the Board of Selectmen budget and present it to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance then will they'll hear from the public as to what the public likes and dislikes, and they'll make a recommendation to put it to referendum, and then ultimately it becomes the people's budget. It stops being the Board of Finance budget, it stops being the Board of Selectmen budget, and it becomes the people's budget at that point.
I think that so often people don't realize that the most important election, or the election that affects them most directly, is the approval or disapproval of a town budget, because those are our taxes.
That's right.
You know, if you're a homeowner, it's your property taxes. If you have children in school, it affects the size of classes, the number of teachers, and if you're not either of those, but you own a vehicle, you're paying taxes for your car, and it's all the services that are out there that you want to have a say in. And if you don't go and vote, you're letting everybody else decide what the services are going to be.
That's a great point, because it's kind of funny, because your local government probably affects your life way more than what happens at the national government, and yet we spend all our time on television talking about national politics. But the things that affect your everyday life, are your roads plowed? Are your roads paved? Do you have good police officers in your community? Social services, the Simsbury farms that your kids go to every day. These are all things that touch your life every day, and yet we don't talk about them that much.
No, and it's something that people need to be responsible and know what's going on. And I think you've certainly given a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities that people have to take part, to learn what's going on.
And we welcome it. And it's not just me. The whole board and all boards and commissions love to get input, because it helps us make better decisions when we hear what our community wants.
Great. Well, Lisa, I thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with me today. And I appreciate everybody watching, and I look forward to carrying on more conversations with some of the remarkable women of Simsbury. Thank you very much.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.